everyone. Um, I'm really excited to talk to you today about a really hot topic, which is generative AI and how it's changing the way we work. A little bit about myself. I'm the Senior VP of Engineering and Data here at Unbounce, and I work with AI and our products have AI in them. So really excited to talk to you about this topic. So first, just to kick it off, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Unbounce, where we use generative AI in our products. So at Unbounce, we're in the landing page building and marketing tech space. We allow marketers to build landing pages so that they can get the most conversions and leads possible for, the things that they're marketing and putting out there in the world. So we do this with AI, and we do it in two different places. First, in the build process. So if you're a marketer and you are building a landing page, we have tools in our landing page builder that allow you to write copy a lot faster and even write copy for you for your landing page. So that's where we use the text generative AI. And then on the other side, we also use AI in our traffic optimization. So these are algorithms that will analyze customers and analyze people looking at your landing pages and route them to the pages that they're more likely to convert. And that likeliness to convert is informed by our ML and AI models. A little bit of a plug here. So if you're interested in learning more about our take on AI and our take on AI in marketing, please give our podcast a listen. It's called Unprompted, and it is hosted by our CMO, Pete Housley. And there's a ton of really exciting content in there and episodes on this topic specifically. So yes, if you want to learn more after this talk, please give it a listen. All right, so now that I've given you a little bit of a background about myself and the work that we do here at Unbounce, let's jump into what is generative AI and how it all started. So if we think of generative AI and what it is, it really comes down to AI that processes huge amounts of data and is able to create something that is new and original. And it's not a new concept by any means. It can be traced back to 1960s when there was this chatbot called Eliza that was created. And it was one of the first natural language processing computer programs. And Eliza was a rule-based chatbot, and it mimicked one of the founders of psychology, Carl Rogers. And it was really created to explore this idea of communication between humans and computers. And Eliza wasn't terribly smart. It was as I said, a rule-based engine and really relied on keywords. But it had a really interesting effect. It created this emotional attachment between humans and the responses that Eliza would provide. And it even caught its creator, Weizenbaum, by surprise that this thing would happen. And since then, it's been called the Eliza effect, this emotional attachment to an AI or a chatbot. And we're even seeing it now with ChatGPT. So fast forward to November 30th, 2022, ChatGPT launched, and ChatGPT saw 1 million users in 5 days. That adoption is huge, right? And then within 2 months, ChatGPT reached 100 million users, and we're seeing this trend continue, and it really got people excited about the potential of generative AI. So as soon as ChatGPT launched, we've seen an arms race between the big players. You've probably all seen it in the news, headline after headline, about really large investments, new startups and product lines, all trying to leverage generative AI. Microsoft invests $10 billion in ChatGPT. Google matches ChatGPT and releases Bard. And then, you have Amazon throwing $4 billion at the problem and starting up Anthropic. So headline after headline and newsfeed after newsfeed about all of these different really large players in the space chasing generative AI and trying to bring products that will provide value to customers and take advantage of this huge opportunity that generative AI is providing. There's a lot of estimates and forecasts out there that are estimating that this market and this space will continue to grow, with one forecast that it will reach $407 billion by 2027. And then on the other side of all of this, money and investment, we have open source companies like Hugging Face trying to democratize AI. And they released their own version of generative AI and the Hugging Face chatbot. So it's also, on the open source side, we're really seeing tools and platforms that will allow companies to really accelerate the adoption and incorporation of these tools into their products and everyday usage, right? So safe to say that 2023 has been generative AI's breakout year, or as I like to call it, hype year. The hype cycle is not unique to generative AI. It happens with almost every new technology that is out there. We've seen this explosive growth of generative AI tools, and really the media around it has been trying to grasp at everything of like, where is this going to revolutionize? How is it going to change the way we work? How's it going to change the way we live our lives? So it really reached the peak of the hype cycle, and I do think it's starting to cool down a bit, and we're starting to become more realistic about some of the offerings that generative AI can provide us. But what's been really interesting is with almost every survey that has went out, we're seeing a lot of curiosity and a lot of willingness to try these tools and try this technology, which is really exciting and will drive the innovation in this space. So why now? Why did this happen? Why this sudden explosion in generative AI? Is it, since it's not a new concept, it's not, new technology, like why did it explode in 2023? So it really comes down to three reasons. The first one is the tremendous advancements in the technology, right? So generative AI relies on deep learning. And what deep learning is computers are trained to use neural networks to create text, images, or content. And most widely used are transformers and this thing called generative adversarial networks, or GANs. So transformers are networks that were designed and introduced in 2017, and they can process language. So ChatGPT was built on a transformer-based LLM. And these transformers can help identify the relationships between words and sentences. So really making technology that you build based on them context aware. And it's not just relying on keywords like ELIZA. So the advancements in deep learning and in this space on tech side is why OpenAI was able to release ChatGPT. And then on the other side, GANs have really allowed for advancements on the image side, and that's when OpenAI released DALL-E. And what these GANs and DALL-E allows people to do is they can generate realistic looking images and videos. So I'm sure you've all seen the many variations of Pope Francis out there, hyper realistic images that were all generated by AI and really demonstrated the power of deep learning and all of these tools. So these advancements have really created, or like given OpenAI the ability to release their tools and get a lot of popularity. The second reason is that OpenAI made ChatGPT and DALL-E available to everyone. That was a really, really great way to get not just like developers or people in the tech industry excited about this advancement, it gave it to everyone. So it really translated into all different kinds of industries, all different kinds of applications, and created this huge excitement around it. And it allowed everyone to talk about it. And then finally, the third reason is with OpenAI's approach to releasing these tools, it created a massive arms race, as you know, as I just talked about, with all of the different big players. And so, you know, naturally with that race and investment, and everyone like trying to develop as quickly as possible using generative AI, it naturally created that explosion as well. So we saw the explosion in the general public, but also with people who and companies that are building software as well. Now, of course, advancements, excitement, new technology are great. They're all, you know, really great things, but everything comes with its challenges, right? And if we look at the past year, all of the big challenges stem from the fact that legal and regulation always lags behind technology advancements. And this isn't something new. We've seen it as, you know, 5 to 10 years ago as big data started to explode, and the concept of incorporating data in your decisions and into your product. We also had those challenges with, you know, with legal lagging behind a lot of those technology advancements. So this is a very common theme, and generative AI is no exception to this rule or theme. And where this has materialized is in a lot of the lawsuits that are coming up. Probably one of the really good examples of the most recent lawsuits is this group of programmers who are raising a lawsuit against GitHub, Microsoft, and OpenAI in the context of GitHub Copilot. So GitHub Copilot can convert commands from natural language, English, into code across many different programming languages. Copilot was trained on open source data or open source code. And so there's a really interesting discussion about who owns that code, who owns the data that these models are trained on, and how do you protect that IP around this data that is open source. And does it make sense for OpenAI and GitHub and Microsoft to monetize this data and monetize these models? So really interesting times, and I'm going to be curious to see what the regulations and laws that come out of this. The other area is the quality of these models. I'm sure you've all heard about it, like all the hallucinations and degradation of models. That's been a really big area. And what's interesting is that, you know, all of these models are black box models. So really hard to understand like what is happening in there and what is causing a lot of these degradations. The third one is data security and usage. Since it's like really new technology, seen a lot of instances where people have fed ChatGPT some confidential information about your company or about the work that you're doing, only to like find it in the general public later. So there's definitely a gap in education of how to use these tools effectively in a safe way that doesn't jeopardize your work or jeopardize your company or your own personal information as well. The other aspect is the training and using these models. It requires a lot of computational resources because they use GPUs. Those aren't cheap. They're not the most environmentally conscious processes to run, right? So there's a lot of challenges around how to run these models effectively with lower cost and also keeping the environment and the impact in mind. And then the other area is new tech. There's a huge gap in AI talent. It's really hard to hire for this space because it is such an infant area. So that's a pretty big challenge that a lot of us will be facing in the future, like pretty soon, is how to recruit and develop talent in the space. And then finally, the last big challenge around this is using this technology for evil and for bad intention. So we've seen a huge spike in scams or even like impersonation, you know, generative AI models pretending to be humans and scamming people, and the proliferation of fake news and images because, you know, as you saw the photo the Pope there, like it's really easy to create these realistic fake images and proliferate them across the internet really, really quickly. And yeah, I think it's pretty important to talk about this like one really concrete example of some of the challenges like in the wild that we've already seen, since it's relatively new technology and this race that OpenAI has created. We're seeing a lot of companies, I mean, like Google, right? Like go to market really quickly to match what's already been put out there. And Google Bard AI was Google's response, or is Google's response to ChatGPT. And in its release, it made a pretty costly factual mistake. It cost Google $100 billion. And the mistake is um, it was asked about the James Webb Space Telescope. And it responded that the James Webb Space Telescope was the first telescope to take pictures outside of our solar system, which is false. And so you can see how, AI doesn't always get it right. And here it cost Google a ton of money and embarrassment, really. And then another example is this, I've already touched a little bit about this, is the concept of model degradation. So there's a report that came out stating that GPT-4, when asked if 17,077 was a prime number in March 2023, it answered correctly 97.6% of the time. But when the same experiment was ran on GPT-4 in June 2023, it dropped down to 2.4%. And again, given that these models are really complex and black boxes, not easy to tune, not easy to debug what's happening with them, it's really hard to correct for these degradations and monitor them. So as we're seeing, and even ourselves at Unbounce, as we're integrating with generative AI, a lot of limitations are rapidly surfacing. I know we can solve a lot of them, but it's such an infant technology, and it's pretty cool that we're moving so quickly on it. Okay, so now that we know what generative AI is and touched a little bit about like how it came about in the past year and the explosion that is created, how does that realistically impact the way we work and on our day-to-day lives? So touching a little bit on the rise of remote work. So COVID-19 really shifted working models to remote-based in 2020. We've all experienced it. We've all seen it. And we've seen a ton of benefits of remote work. So, you can build teams remotely and access worldwide talent. And so being able to recruit and hire for your roles across the globe, which, for a business and for teams, it gives you a lot of advantages. It also allows you to reduce office space costs and save on all of those expenses that as a traditional business you would be facing. There's also been a ton of research and a ton of data around increased productivity and happiness of coworkers and happiness of remote teams. So really, remote work has been proven to be here and to stay. And what's interesting is, before generative AI created all this wave, there's been a really big discussion around, should we go back to the office? Should it be hybrid? Should we continue to be remote, right? And we've seen that shift completely to, will I be replaced by a robot, right? Like overnight, those conversations have really shifted about working models, and remote versus hybrid shifted to, how is AI going to impact my job? How is AI going to impact my team? And that shift has been really interesting to watch and understand. And we've seen headline after headline in the media, really stoking this narrative, all about like, you're going to lose your job in 10 years, killer computers, are robots going to steal your job? So everyone is jumping on this bandwagon of trying to imagine what the future is going to look like. And it's really been because of this rise of generative AI and that concept entering the mainstream media. So what do I think? And what is really realistic? And being really close to this problem, by providing generative AI tools to our customers and then also adopting a lot of the technology in our teams. Really excited to talk about this and actually talk about realistically what we can see in the near future, and how it's going to shape our day-to-day and in very different areas. And then if I look at it holistically, it's really around two themes. It's around automation and democratization. So let's talk about automation first. So for automation, a first really big area that my teams are really excited to get into and to start adopting is around writing code. So I already touched a little bit on GitHub's Copilot. And what GitHub Copilot allows you to do is it provides you with the tools to perform code completion and suggestions. It also allows you, it will write code for you. If you give it a specific prompt, it will highlight some issues in your code. It can propose code improvements across many languages. So it's really about allowing you as a developer to move faster and more effectively. And where I see this supporting remote work environments and supporting remote teams is that as a team of developers, you can move a lot faster, and it acts as a pair programmer that you're able to pair with this AI on writing code and moving faster and shipping to production faster. With a caveat though, as I talked about with the challenges of AI doesn't get it always right. So now you, as a developer, you have to make sure that you're continuously curious about the responses that AI or about the code that GitHub Copilot is proposing, right? You can't just adopt it and say, yep, this is great, I'm just going to ship this to production. Like that area of curiosity is going to be super, super important. And the learning of working with this tooling and always being having it top of mind that you also need to review the code and understand what is being proposed and what is being suggested by this bot. The other area for developers is DevOps and infrastructure. How many of us have been woken up in the middle of the night with an alert? Something is very, very wrong with your infrastructure, and you're waking up and you're trying to sift through millions of logs, trying to identify patterns and trying to identify the areas that are failing, and that process of sifting through logs and identifying problems is really stressful and time consuming and can be largely automated. So I was really excited to see the most recent announcement from Datadog, this chatbot called Bits AI, that will help you investigate and respond to incidents a lot more effectively across your entire infrastructure stack. So again, just like GitHub Copilot can be your assistant on the code side, this will be your assistant for being on call or being a DevOps engineer. And then we also saw Google's Duet AI announcement recently. They will also be releasing something similar. It's a bot that will provide you with support on your cloud infrastructure. So I'm really excited about the automation of this space because, as we all know, when you're on call, that's really stressful. And as a business, you want to be able, for your team to be able to resolve those outages and incidents as fast as possible because, no one likes downtime, right? So this can be a really, really great area for teams working remotely and responding to incidents. And then if I look at for our customers, marketers who are generating content, so we are really providing them with tools to automate the creation of this content, whether it's written or visual content. And one of the big areas, even for me, when I'm writing internal documentation or internal communication, it's a great, great way to overcome that creative block or overcome that, like, empty page with the blinking cursor, right? It's like the starting point that can just give you a little bit of inspiration and get you started. And I can see teams really adopting these text and image generative AI tooling because what it really allows you to, it empowers you to, if you're not really good at writing, right, like it will give you that initial point and allow you to like get you started. It also reduces the cost for content generation. You might not need as many resources or as big of teams, or even not even that. It will allow you to do more with the people that you have, right? So it really reduces that cost of content generation, and it increases the productivity of teams. And if you're really more curious, if you're, in the marketing space and want to learn more, one of the first episodes of Unprompted, they built a marketing campaign using only AI. So give it a listen, and it was really successful. So it's already proving itself out in this space of content generation and being able to really empower marketers and teams to do more with less. And then on the other side of the table, another application area that we've explored is customer service and chatbots. So traditional chatbots, so these chatbots that you see on websites or chatbots that you see on knowledge bases, they're the traditional ones. They're really based on keyword search. So if you try to ask it a question, that's why the response is usually uninspiring, because that traditional chatbot would just look for a keyword and like try to match it to its knowledge base. So it doesn't have this concept of context or relationship between different words or the ability to reason about the question you're asking. So really the traditional chatbots lack luster and aren't really super applicable to most use cases. However, with generative AI and these chatbots powered by language models, they're context aware and they have the ability to reason. So that's why, ChatGPT, as an example, you can ask it a question and it'll give you a pretty good answer. And now with the proliferation of like these models and tools and platforms, you can actually train these models on your own data. So one thing, we had a hackathon recently on the engineering team, and one of the teams took an open source language model and trained it on our customer facing knowledge database and created a chatbot within a day. So uh, the this just shows the power of the democratization of these tools and models, because the velocity on like creating these innovative, really, really powerful products is, and anyone can do it, right? So we created this chatbot, and it was actually pretty great in terms of answers, and really outperformed like a more traditional keyword search chatbot. And when I think about how this will, not just impact, of course, customer facing chatbots or knowledge bases, but it will also empower your teams as well to build these really cool and easy interfaces around onboarding. So let's say, you have a lot of documentation that is great for onboarding a new employee or onboarding a new teammate. You can easily train a chatbot on that information and have it assist someone in their onboarding and speed up their onboarding and getting them productive quicker, right? So really, really great applications there. So moving into democratization, What do I mean when I say that? So democratization is this concept of providing someone or providing everyone with a thing that they didn't have before. And this concept of democratization has been around for a long time, and again in the space of data, right? Like if you look at the history of big data and all of the advancements that have happened there and all of the tooling that has come out of that space, it's really around the concept of enabling your company or enabling your customers or teams to have access to the most data as possible. And the newer advancement now with generative AI is that it's going to enable you to do things you don't necessarily have the skill set for. So for the longest of time, or while I still believe this, I think as a leader, one of the most important and powerful skills you could have is knowing SQL. And the reason why I think that way is because as a leader, or not even as a leader, anyone in an organization, the best decisions they can make are going to be data driven, right? Or the best way they're going to learn about something is by looking at the data. Or the best way you're going to build a strategy, right, is by looking at historical data and like looking at insights and really trying to understand what is real and what are your assumptions or biases. And SQL allows you to do that. It allows you to ask any questions that you have against the data. It allows you as a leader, if you know how to write SQL, right? Like you're not relying on a team to create you a dashboard. You're not relying on a team or an analyst to go in there and get those answers for you. You can just get the answers for yourself. So it allows you to move a lot faster and independently. Well, what's been really interesting to see with generative AI is there's these companies that have built engines that will translate natural language to SQL. So now that you don't even need to know that, you just need to, you're going to be able to ask in English questions against databases and against tables. And what this unlocks, it unlocks the ability to anyone to be able to ask questions from the data, and allows organizations to make data-driven decisions a lot quicker. With a caveat, right? Like this concept, and really want to emphasize that these tools won't get it right all the time, right? So really have to be critical of the responses that come back and really ask questions around it. Does this make sense? Is this a right answer, right? So always, if there's anything I want anyone to leave here with, is like always keeping that curiosity in mind and making sure that what you're seeing as a response makes sense. And, with all of these great advancements and ways we can adopt this technology into our teams and empower our teams to move faster and be more effective, I think we're all going to be responsible for keeping a lot of things in mind around data privacy, regulation, and education. So, making sure that you're working with your security team or your compliance team around when you're adopting these tools. Do they align with your terms of service? Do they align with your data privacy regulations? And then also when you're implementing these tools to become customer facing, are you adhering to the latest regulations? And we've seen this in data, right? Like with GDPR. So making sure you're really up to date and are really keeping that in mind, because as creators of this technology, we all hold that responsibility to keep that in the forefront. And then the last piece of it is educating your teams and educating your employees about how to use these tools effectively, how to be safe when using them, and keeping those challenges and limitations of the technology in mind, and continuously thinking about ways to work within them and mitigate against their side effects. So far, stepping away from like those really scary headlines of like AI and robots coming for our jobs, so far it's really, the theme has been with almost every single tool that has come out that, that has gained adoption, has been around assistance. We're working hand in hand with these applications and tools to really, at the end of the day, making our jobs easier, making us more effective, working faster. And what's been really interesting to see is all of the different industries and areas where these tools have come up, right? Like, it's not just helping developers, but it's also helping marketers, helping content creators, helping teams as a whole. So really, the applications of it are pretty wide and open. But yeah, it's really about holding hands and assisting us to do our day-to-day jobs. So what about the future, though? Do we think that this trend around increasing our productivity and assisting us, will that continue? Will that start a shift? I think, of course, no one can absolutely predict that. I'm sure over time, things will continuously shift and more advancements will come up, and we'll see a lot more innovative applications of this technology. But the thing that we have to keep in mind is that all of the work that we do, especially in the in the tech space, and with any product or any solution that my teams are putting out there, really look at like 4 different things, right? You're looking at cost, how expensive is it to build this thing? Velocity, how fast can we go to market? How fast can we build the solution? Or how fast can we compete, right? Like, everyone talks about how to move quickly. The third one is quality, right? Like, quality is absolutely super, super important. You don't want to be putting out products out there that don't scale, or that provide a really poor experience, or provide just an overall low value, right? Low customer value. And then the fourth one is innovation, which is really important. Like with any product, you don't want to match a competitor, right? You want to innovate in the industry and provide a unique solution or an innovative solution that customers will adopt and get excited about. So where generative AI fits into this is, so far with the generated content, whether it's code, whether it's images or text, it's knocked out 2 out of the park. Cost, right? Like, it's lowered cost to generation, and velocity. It can do it incredibly quickly, right? It can do it faster than any human. However, there's the other 2 that it has not reached yet, which is quality. The quality of some of the generation is still quite low. Walked you through a few examples, how it doesn't always get it right. Some of the images that I put in the slides were generated by AI. The quality is definitely off. So there's huge opportunity for generative AI to move up the ladder on quality, and it needs to get up there before we can really lean into it and fundamentally change the way that we work in our society. And then the fourth part is innovation. So you always need human creativity and human innovation to drive kind of like this technology and generative AI. And that one is also an area that there is potential that AI will catch up, right? And that will become another area where it can support us and assist us in thinking in innovative ways. But as of now, the 2 that generative AI is really excelling at is cost and velocity. And that's all for me. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope this was really useful and exciting.